Hello and welcome to another episode of Intune.Training, the place to learn how to use Microsoft Intune, the Steve and Adam Show, with Ben, the intern, and special guest, Jeff Gilbert.
Hey, Jeff.
Hello.
Hey,
Hey,
everybody. How's it going?
it's going good.
It's good. Hopefully
right.
Teams is recording all of this and everything.
Yeah, let's hope. Maybe. It's still showing the red button, so the red light. I think we're good.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get to it. So we have special guest, Jeff Gilbert. He is a Microsoft, not PFE, whatever the new name is for PFEs. And working the Intune specialist. So Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us who you are, what you do, and all those good things.
Sure. So I'm Jeff Gilbert. I'm a senior customer engineer, now we're called. Specialize in Azure and Endpoint management, which is a fancy way of saying I work with Intune almost every day, right? Been doing this for a long time. Started out with SMS 1.2, very, very long time ago. So been kind of in and out of the community a bunch since then. Fairly well known to most of the old guys. Hoping to get back in touch with all the new guys, right? And happy to help out as much as I can, right? Kind of share my experience and kind of things that are going on that I see every day as a customer engineer talking to customers. Right?
Excellent. Well, so Jeff, you have a great blog out there, and plus folks can find you on Twitter. And I'm trying to find my link. I seem to have messed up my links. So it is jeffgilb.com, and we're going to link to that in the description below, as well as his Twitter. If you want to find some of the latest cutting edge, cool Intune related content, that's a great place to go. We keep finding cool things on Jeff's blog, and so we said, hey, we should really get Jeff to come and talk to us because we think he's doing some really neat stuff. A couple of months ago, Jeff, we got in touch with you because we saw that you were doing a Hyper-V provisioning thing for autopilot testing and stuff, and we said, Jeff, hey, we've got something similar too. Let's collaborate. So that's how we kind of got in touch with Jeff, and then we've just kind of been trading notes back and forth with him since then. And so, thanks for joining us, Jeff. We really appreciate it.
Very much so.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, so today's topic is specifically we're going to focus around OMA-URIs. I don't even know what OMA stands for, but hopefully Jeff's gonna clue us in on some of these acronyms, and Microsoft loves all the acronyms. So so he's gonna give us a glossary of terms and some cheat sheets to go with all this, and so we're gonna do some basics and then get into some more advanced pieces of that. So Jeff, take it away.
All right, let me share my screen. Everybody cross your fingers.
Teams is giving us a run for our money today.
Yeah, it is.
Can everybody see that?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'm gonna jump in. Again, this is the blog that kind of started off this conversation. And before I really jump into this, we should probably talk about why you would use a custom policy, right? So what we're going to talk about today are OMA-URI policies. These are custom policies in Intune. And what you see in the UI of Intune, all the settings and things that you see in the policies and configuration profiles, all those things are turning these widgets called CSPs. And not all of the CSPs are surfaced in the UI. So if you're looking in the UI, you're trying to do something, and you're not seeing a policy or a setting to use, then you can probably create a custom policy for that. Right? And you'll see this sometimes in the case of, I'm just going over here. You know, we're doing something like policy analytics, and we're importing group policies, and you've got a bunch of policies that you're trying to bring in as MDM policies, but you're not seeing something there. We go create a custom policy for that. Or you're trying to do something that's just not in the UI. We use a custom policy for that. So that was kind of the impetus behind all this. I was helping a customer trying to do something we couldn't do from the UI. So we just went and create a custom policy.
Okay.
All right, let me just move my window so I can see you guys. Here we go. All right, so again, just the blog right here, started off. So I'm going to go ahead and give you kind of a cheat sheet to use, right? So after recording, you can kind of use the cheat sheet then also, but really I want to start with kind of what are all these acronyms, right? As soon as you start with this, it's like, oh my goodness, right? That's my dad joke for the recording about what are all these things. And so we'll start off with kind of what OMA-DM is, right? So OMA-DM is Open Mobile Alliance Device Management Protocol. That's what it really stands for. And what it really is a document that describes how we manage devices with CSPs. And it's created by the Open Mobile Alliance, which is a ton of companies. You can see they're mostly telecom companies. They've been doing this for a long time, and they've gotten together. And so this is all open source, right? This is all, it's not vendor specific, right? It's just all these vendors got together and say, hey, let's agree on how to manage devices. And it's been around for a very, very long time. So you can see Microsoft isn't listed on here. However, we do use this. This is built into Windows 10, right? So that's kind of what OMA-DM is, right? So Open Mobile Alliance Device Management. And again, it's just really what it is just a specification. Let me scroll fast here for how we manage devices, right? I can't see that. Right, and so we'll talk a little bit about what SyncML is, let's go through and some other things, but this you can think of OMA-DM is just the definition of how we manage devices with CSPs, which we'll also talk about, right? So if we go one step further from SyncML, right, and SyncML just stands for Synchronous Markup Language, and this is just an XML file that's sent over the air to devices using the OMA-DM protocol, right? So all the policies that your devices are getting are coming in SyncML. And the cool thing about this, it's open source, right? But if you look at the response codes on this page, and I'll give you the links to all these things at the end, you'll actually see these in the Windows event logs, right? So when you're looking at policies being applied to Windows devices, look in the event viewer, you can look for these 200, 202s. You'll see all these in there. So if you're kind of curious, like, hey, what's going on with my device? I'm trying to process a policy. These status codes are a good reference for you here. Okay, so that's SyncML. Again, I created a couple short links here too. So these things will be easy to find, hopefully.
Nice.
So we love short links.
Yes, we
do. There's a short link for everything. Just try ake.ms/anything and it'll usually work, right?
Steve Jobs, try that one.
Yeah. That one has been taken down.
It's been moved.
Oh, has it? All right, carry on.
Yeah. So yeah, I know this is kind of the boring part, but we gotta get these definitions down.
No, this is great.
Right?
I think
awesome.
this is really good.
So we got OMA-DM, right? Protocol. It's made by the OMA dudes, right? And it's going to use SyncML. And what we're going to do with this now is talk to a CSP, right? And a configuration service provider. And this is a great definition to memorize for parties, right? If I can get this to work. Right? It's interface to read, set, modify, or delete configuration settings on the device, right? And they map to registry keys or files. So configuration service provider, and I always kind of think of this as it's analogous to kind of registry settings in my mind, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to find a spot on the device. I'm going to set this setting somewhere. So to me, as I think through kind of the hierarchy of how things flow, that's just an easy way for me to think about it.
So Jeff, I'm going to ask a really dumb question, and you're going to look at me and roll your eyes. I appreciate the question, but it's going to be a question that we get from our customers, which is, how does this CSP relate to the Azure subscription CSP?
Yeah. No. So these CSPs, again, these are built into the OS, right? And these are the settings on the OS itself, right? So these are ways that we can tweak that, right? It's not necessarily rated to anything in the cloud at all, right? And again, it's just a setting we can configure on the device, right?
Nice.
Yeah, awesome. I hear that sometimes too, right? Yeah,
Wait,
and the cool thing about
there's
this
two
is,
acronyms. There's one acronym that means two different things.
No,
Never.
With Microsoft? Really?
Yeah. Okay. You see, they just renamed Autopilot White Glove. That was a fun one there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait. So what you're saying is that in Intune, we can configure a CSP, but that's not the same as
the Azure subscription CSP.
Right.
Okay.
All right, let's keep on track. All right,
All
so these, you can think of these when Microsoft started using CSPs with Windows Mobile 5.0. Right, so these have been around for a long time. And this is when we support this for mobile first, right? And then afterwards, we've kind of built this in now to Windows 10. So when you hear that MDM is built into Windows 10, that's what we're talking about. And we now have CSP support within Windows built in, right? This is open source, right? Not like WMI, which your configuration manager admin, you know all about. But the cool thing about this with Windows 10 is we've enabled co-management, right? So configuration manager can still set these CSP settings, and it's setting it through on the device. I won't get too low level here, but there is something called a common device configurator, right? When the policy hits a device and that converts it, it kind of wraps that into WMI, right? And so that way we can talk with configuration manager, set the same settings we do with Intune. The other thing that lets us do is programmatically access the CSPs with things like PowerShell. And so that's a whole different ball of worms or can of worms there. But that's the way that really this is going on behind the scenes, right? And so Intune and kind of modern management is trying to leverage these open source CSPs and try to make it as vendor agnostic as possible to do this. And what's nice about that is that we can do things like manage Macs now, right? And manage Apple and manage Android using these CSPs. What we're talking about today is really more towards Windows, right? That's right, it's over here. And so what we do there is, because these are Windows devices, we're gonna use the CSPs there. For Apple devices, we'll use things like Apple Configurator to create the policies and apply those to them. Profile builder, those types of things. With Android, yeah, we can do some OMA-URIs with Android, but really that's where kind of OEM config kind of comes in for the most part.
Yeah.
So this is mostly Windows, right? You'll see this the most. And again, think of these, they're just like client-side extensions for GPOs. If you're using those, you can think of CSPs kind of do the same thing.
Yeah.
All right, and that brings us to OMA-URI. So OMA-URI, Open Mobile Alliance Uniform Resource Identifiers, right? So you probably heard, I call it myself, I think, the blog OMA-URI policies, and that's just become kind of synonymous with the types of custom policies we use because they're based on OMA-URI paths.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So this is kind of the glossary, right? The glossary terms to kind of understand as we're going through. I've talked to a lot of customers, had a lot of confusion on what's OMA-DM and what all these things mean. And really, you don't necessarily have to know all that stuff to get this to work. But it's nice to kind of know kind of what's going on in the background of the covers there, of what's going on. So for you to start with that.
Cool. So before you move on, I guess for those of you new to the show, Adam doesn't know a ton about the MDM and Intune space. So that's why we started this channel. Was Steve said he would train me, and so we said, hey, let's record it. So
and it was going to be an hour, maybe 2 sessions, and a year and a half later.
Yeah, I'm still remedial here. Okay, so
and I'm the intern.
You work here. You're Steve's intern, not mine.
Yeah.
I'm still the
Neither of us have the beards for that yet, Pamela.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
That's right. Okay, so where I was headed with it is, okay, so there is in your last note there, so that you've got MDM, mobile device management, is built in into the OMA-URIs, and I've seen some conversations where there's discussions around like, okay, so you've got Intune policies, and those are all in the GUI, and you can set things, and stuff happens on the client. And so we know that some of this stuff comes down to the workstation in different ways, and then if you try to mirror that and say, okay, well, how does this translate to the way we do it with group policy or WMI or config manager, whatever, where do those mappings happen? So I guess the thing I'm getting at is can you talk a little bit about the challenge of Intune and trying to use Intune to use the OMA and open source technology here to manage Windows devices, and so how that presents basically some limitations that then create challenges on, okay, well, how do we do this within Intune natively for MDM or whatever?
Can I round out your question?
Yeah.
Basically, what your question is what are the limitations for using OMA-URI compared to using config manager?
Yeah.
I mean, compared to group policy,
it's hard to compare, right? It's
group policy, yeah.
Right. I'm a big proponent of kind of like the Highlander principle, like there can only be one. And when you're starting to look at things like you talked about with group policies and of course that's ADMX backed templates in Intune, those can do things. Security baselines can do things. Configuration profiles can do things. Custom policies can do things. There's a lot of ways to do the same thing right now. And so that's kind of the rationalization about how do we go about doing this. Because in policy analytics, a great example, right? Group policy analytics, you'll import a group policy and they'll say, hey, we can support this with this CSP. That doesn't mean we have to make a custom policy. Right? It doesn't necessarily mean we have to use a configuration profile at all. Maybe it's an ADMX template, maybe it's something else, maybe it's PowerShell, right? So it's hard to kind of compare them because one's WMI and one's CSP. But at the end of the day, we're doing the same thing, and there's probably 5 ways to do it, right? And so that's the challenge, I think. It's not so much of how do I do it with Configuration Manager versus how do I do it with Intune. It's about how do I just do it, right? And what's the best way, what makes the most sense. You see this a lot when you start talking about simple security policies for Windows, right? These BitLocker and firewall and all those things we have that are broken out for that kind of security persona and Defender ATP integration, which is awesome. But you can also do the same thing in baselines, and you can do a lot of that in group policies and things like that too. So there's a lot of flexibility built into Intune, and that can lead to complexity sometimes, especially if you've got the things configured, settings configured in multiple places, and now you got to figure out what's going on. I've got this unexpected thing is happening, right? Why are all my devices encrypting themselves today, but they weren't supposed to? That kind of stuff happens.
Never seen that happen in any customer environment. Or deleting the certificate profile and all of a sudden nobody can authenticate to the Wi-Fi. I don't know what happened.
Or if they've got third-party encryption turned on, that's a lot of fun when BitLocker starts trying to work.
Oh yeah. So Jeff, can I just to clarify? So the baked-in policies and configuration items that we have available to us in Intune, is it fair to say that the actual delivery mechanism behind the veneer of those policies, is that all running on OMA as well? Yeah,
that's exactly what's happening.
Cool.
In fact, if you look in the Intune UI, the policies, you can go create a custom policy that does the same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
They're doing the same thing. Yeah, I did that with like FIDO key authentication. Right, I actually went out and created a custom policy before I realized there was an option in the UI just to do it. Right, so I actually tested it and it works the same exact way.
Nice.
So yeah, behind the scenes, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, this is way too nerdy, and we can talk about this later. But I wonder do you know if there's any way to create the standard policy and then extract what it's doing, so the OMA policy from like the basic configuration policies? Because that would be really.
Not sure. We probably could do it. If we could probably do it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I know for sure you can see when you create a custom policy. I'll show you in the UI here in a minute. You can actually see the path we use. See what's going on. Yeah.
You'd probably.
You could use. Have you looked at the console yet in developer mode? And see the background and see what the calls are. Right.
I do that all the time.
Something in there too, right?
Yeah. Cool.
so many good things about going in and developer mode for the Intune portal, especially for automation. Once you've got that token, you can automate everything. Well, no, I'll take that back. Most things, conditional access, we still can't automate.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay, it's cool. So any other questions about kind of the general background or glossary of terms, right? There is going to be a test at the end of this, I'll tell you, right?
Oh, excellent.
I'll fail it. I'm comfortable admitting that. I'll fail it.
Oh my goodness. No.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
I'm gonna make that a bumper sticker, I think. Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's dig into this now. So now we know what a configuration service provider is, and really all you need to know from this when this talk's over is this link, because you're going to see I'm going to show you how to use this one page to show you how to do pretty much everything, right? This is all you're going to need to know, right? So we'll start off. Here's the high-level reference, right? And you can see each of these CSPs is set for, remember, they're built in the operating system. So there's going to be specific CSPs for specific platforms. So HoloLens, Hub, IoT, these things are all here, right? The Microsoft documentation. What we're going to look at, as you see, if you scroll down, there are a ton of CSPs.
So there's a whole heap of X's there. Is that because there's technical limitations and I see like footnotes and things like that? Why?
Yeah, so we'll dig into this. I'll show you. So what this reference page does is tell you which CSPs are supported on which platforms and why, right? This is an older one that's set up for Windows 10 Mobile, right, which you don't support anymore. So that's why that one is. But as you look through here, you'll see things, and this will come up later, so I just want to point out, there are settings in here that we can configure with Intune.
What do you mean I can't set BitLocker on home?
What's that? Yeah.
I can't set my BitLocker policy on home computer?
Not with the CSP.
Let's not talk about home. I'm still recovering from some home-related wounds.
Well, if you scroll down, you'll see. I'm sorry for scrolling here. It goes fast.
Good.
What we're looking for is
wallpaper. Personalization.
There it is. Still can't set the screensaver, but there's but we're looking for is the policy CSP.
Yep.
Right. This is the one that Intune uses most. Right. This is the one that's really for Windows 10. This is the one that Intune is going to focus on the most. Right. So I'm going to talk about how do we create an OMA-URI path to do something. One of my other blogs about how to manage a local administrators group on Windows 10. Right. And so we're going to figure out how to make this path. And this is the cheat sheet for that. Right. And this information is all going to be, again, on this page. And so when you're going in here to create these custom policies, you're going to spend most of your time in the policy CSP. And that's going to make it really easy on you because as we go through, these are the 4 things you're going to need to know. And 2 of those 4 are never going to change. Right, so this little cheat sheet will kind of help you out there.
I'm going to guess policy name doesn't change and scope.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get it? Did I pass?
Yeah. You're going to get extra credit on the test. Right. So
that you'll fail.
Kind of digging through here, you can see there are 2 scopes, right? So there's a user scope and there's a device scope.
Yep.
Almost everything in Intune uses the device scope. You could use the user scope for things if you wanted to apply specifically to a specific user for some reason. It would only apply to that user, but usually it's going to be all device.
And interesting. Sorry, I just want to jump in. Am I right in saying that the device and user scope is literally what Hive in the registry that we're talking about as a rule?
Related.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's interesting here is if it's going to be for device, you don't even need to say device in the path.
Right.
So we've got device here. If you are going to apply to device, you can just start off your policy with just /vendor.
Cool.
Right. So sometimes you'll see this and this confuses people sometimes that, hey, I've got this policy and this one starts with device and this one doesn't have anything, it doesn't know where to go. And it knows because it's going to default to device unless you tell it otherwise with user. So 99% of the time, all of your policies are going to start off with device. Right? Or, I'm sorry, with nothing there, right? Just vendor.
Yep.
So that's scope, right? And the next one is the subcategory, right? And this is where we talk about, do we want the device to be in the config category or the result category? Config is where we configure things, right? The result is just the reporting category.
Gotcha.
So how do I get the results back into the portal?
It depends on the CSP, and they do different things, right? So some of them we can actually collect logs with and things like that. But for our purposes, for 99% of your custom policy life, this is going to be the exact thing you're going to follow, right? So this part here is going to be the base for almost all your custom policies. It's generally where I always start off anyway, right? So vendor MSFT policy config. Remember, this is all open source, so that's why we've got vendor Microsoft.
Gotcha.
Because there are a lot of other vendors as well who participate with OMA-DM.
Nice.
So from here, now this is where it gets interesting, right? So what area name am I going to use? What policy name? This is the last part of it. And this is where you go through all the different settings that are available in the policy CSP and figure out what setting do you want to set on the device. So if you scroll down the same page I'm still on, scroll down, you'll see all the different policies that you can set. So if you're looking through here and say, oh, I want to set a custom policy, I'm going to skip all these EDMX ones for now.
So so one of the policies I saw there was for add remove programs, I could block the ability to uninstall software.
Yeah.
Fancy.
Yeah. There's a lot you can do here, right? So pretty much anything that's available in CSPs, we're going to get through here. And if it's in the policy CSP, we're going to be able to do it with Intune, right? And even some other CSPs too.
And the ones that all say ADMX, I assume those are ADMX backed policies.
Yep. Policy settings. And again, this may not be the best place to set those because we've got all those policies
ADMX,
in the now, right? And just another tip too, if you're ingesting those externally, careful because we may have some of the Microsoft ones in Intune may conflict with those, especially if you've ingested one a while back and things have changed, a lot of third-party things. So be careful with that one. But for this one, remember we're going to do local administrators on the device. So here we're going to look for the restricted groups one. So I'm going to scroll again real fast. And you'll just see as I'm going down here, there's a lot of policies, right?
Yes, there is.
So this is, again, the one page is going to be your friend as you're going through here.
Yeah, wow.
Still going. Still going. Right, so here it is. So the area name is restricted groups, right? And then the policy name, this is an easy one because there's only one, is configure group membership.
I can't manage my home computer with it.
My home computer just got conditional access out of Microsoft. I can't read my email out anymore. I feel your pain.
I went to do a demo yesterday with Mac OS, and I haven't got any of my Macs enrolled at the moment. And straight away, I'm like, all right, I'll just log into Teams on the website. I should be able to do everything I need. Nah, you need to install the company portal app and manage them. Like, too much.
Yeah, I use WVD with my Mac, and I bring up a Windows 10 desktop on my Mac.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. So let's look at this though. This is interesting stuff, right? So these are things we've already talked about. So we're actually in the policy we're going to configure now, right? And if you look, here's all this information in this one spot. Everything you need to know about it's here. What versions, what editions is this port on, right? The scope. There we said most of these are going to be device. Sometimes you'll see device or user, or sometimes you'll just see user. Pretty rare. But this is going to help you as you're building out your policy. What is it going to look like, right? So here we got the scope, device, and then anything else you need to know about this policy. This is usually where you'll find that information. So this is something that catches up a lot of people when they start trying to manage the administrators group, is they delete the default administrator. So the administrator that comes with the device, they'll take it out of the policy, and believe it or not, that won't work. So you'll get an error. A lot of times, especially if they found a blog or something like that, and they'll go find, I got this path, or someone gave me the path, and they'll go put it in, and it won't work. We'll end up looking at it, and okay, you're trying to delete the local administrator, and we can't have that. This is why this was added here, right? So you can look this up. People look up there, and they'll come right across this. The other things about this particular policy, you can add users and add groups. You can add them by username, or you can add them by SID, right? So the security identifier for either the user or the device or group. That's not supported on all versions. So be careful as you look through here. Make sure that you've got the right edition, that you've got all the scope configured right, and the edition of Windows is going to support whatever you're trying to do.
So does this one have the footnote mentioned at the bottom, which is probably worth calling out if it does? Because I saw up the top it said it supported it with 4 next to it on the version OS at the top. So is there a footnote down the bottom saying 4? Because that explains all of that. Which version? Because that's actually pretty important. And there you go.
That's 4. Available in Windows 10, 1803.
Yeah. So that's always going to be something you need to pay attention to when you're doing Intune management and CSPs.
And I tested this, and they're not lying. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I found. So and I actually had 3 different versions or 3 different editions of Windows all at the same time just to see what happened. I like to do that a lot. I like break things just to see kind of what's going on. But this is accurate documentation for sure.
Okay, so I'm learning as we go here. So hang on, this is happening. We got to watch the wheels turn. Okay, so number 1, how do you pick policies off of this? Like, how do you figure out what policy you need from here? Because I'm thinking, group policy, you kind of got some reference and things, and there's a hierarchy and a tree, and this looks daunting and intimidating. And how do I know what thing to use? And then 2, how do I know? Is there a notation on each CSP to indicate whether it is native in the Intune UI and doesn't, so I don't need to go here and create a CSP because it's already, or not, an OMA URI because it's already native in the UI.
Yeah. So no. To both. Right?
All right, fair enough.
When you're SAP, right? The only thing I can say when you're going through these is 99% of the time, if you're looking for something specific, one of these will jump out at you. Like we're talking about like a self-service password reset. We'll talk about later, right? That's authentication. It's in that CSP. It's in that policy. Restricted groups, right? Some of the other things you can usually see Defender, those types of things. Usually, and again, there's a lot, but there's not a million of them, right? And the more of these custom policies you do, the more familiar you get with this kind of hive, right? And looking at it. That said, always make sure you check this when you create a policy because things do get updated and changed. All right. So from that perspective, you just kind of have to hunt back and figure out which policy is going to cover that.
So it's more of a I know I need to do this thing. Let me go look for a CSP that does it versus like Steve likes to do, using this as a shopping list for new things I haven't looked at before to configure.
Potentially, yeah.
It works for both. Yeah.
So coming from someone like who literally does this, the way that I work with custom policies is I try to see whether the policy exists first. So straight out of the bat, can I just do this without having to dive into this? If the policy doesn't exist, or like adding users to an admin group or whatever, that's when you go, okay, it just doesn't natively exist, but I know that I can do it. So then you go into the docs, and it's just one of those things where the more you spend reading this stuff, the more comfortable you'll become sort of creating those URIs.
True. And again, you shouldn't be coming here that often.
Exactly.
You shouldn't have to, I should say. Right. And so usually when you've gotten here, it's kind of last resort. I've checked everywhere I could think of. Let me go see if I can just do a custom policy now.
Yeah.
The example, I was helping somebody today, trying to set up site zones. Right. How do we add app proxy to trusted sites so that we get SSO for Azure AD? Doing those types of things. And I looked, I don't see anything anywhere I thought it would be. I found the custom URI path. I was like, oh, let's go create a custom policy. And about halfway through it, I realized, I'll bet you this is an ADMX template. And sure
That
enough,
was?
there it was. I'm like,
That is.
all right, so
That's
fun.
funny. Wait, so that was the site to zone policies?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
so-
I've got a really, really ghetto way of doing that. It's I'm glad that's now a thing you can do from the UI.
You've been able
Yeah,
to do
these-
that for 12 months, Ben, with the ADMX back policies.
I haven't needed to do it in 12 months.
Ben
Steve.
doesn't use the UI. Don't you know this already?
I read
Oh
everything.
no, trust me, I know.
Yeah. Well, and they just added like 650 new settings to that
So
too,
good.
and not all of them are in the UI yet. Right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that come to that too. So that space is really exploding, right? That's actually helping a lot of people go from group policies on premises to the cloud too, right? So
Yep.
they're working a lot on that.
I just wish more companies would take the mentality of burning the boats and not bringing their group policies across with them.
Impossible.
There's no requirement to
Policy.
bring everything you have on premises to the cloud, right? Don't
Yeah.
have to bring the mesh you have there. I mean, I've helped customers do this, and there's policies in there that have been there for years, and no one knows why. There's
Exactly.
policies that are in there with 0 settings. Like, why? What's going on? Or things for Microsoft, when we did this, we had settings in there for Internet Explorer 8 that they were still being deployed out,
Mhm.
right? So
I'm
Yeah.
surprised
More of
there
these
weren't
policies.
settings for IE6.
was it? Yeah. But so all these things, they're slowing your computer down too, right? So all these things are being
100%.
processed. The
Yeah.
less you bring over, the better. And
Jeff,
so-
you need to remember though that greenfields means moving all of your stuff to a new environment.
No.
However,
Alright.
I think
I
there
used
is a
to
lot
love
of
the
validity.
terminology Greenfield.
I think there's a lot of validity in being able to use the group policy analytics to look at what you've got and compare and see, so that but you should still take the time to review and assess and determine whether you need to move those things. Don't just bulk move and lift and shift. Like that's I feel like, I mean, I think a lot of us feel that's the wrong approach. This is a great opportunity for house cleaning, for thinning it out and reassessing why you're doing it, especially if you are like for things like security policies and things. Like if you're doing Azure AD join machines, not hybrid, man, there's a whole lot of like on-premises, type policies that you might have had in place that just either don't apply or are different because you're doing Azure AD.
Yeah,
join
it's
and
not
things
my
like that.
it's not my it is a fact. You have got a lot of stuff in your group policy that you do not need.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, remember, there's multiple ways to do things, and
Yes.
just because you did a group policy before, now it's an Intune. Is it a baseline? Is it a policy? Is it something the security team is going to monitor from Defender ATP? All these different things, and it really requires more teams working together now than in the past, right? The security teams are usually the first ones who get involved with group policy analytics, and they say, okay, we need to manage these and these sets of policies, so I can keep an eye on it from the Defender ATP portal how these things go. So if you just bring them in and go straight to creating ADMX templates or creating baselines, you'll just create havoc. And so it's a lot of coordination, a lot of rationalization about, do we still need this? If we do, how are we going to manage it? And let's do it once, right? And not track this down years later, right?
Cool. All right. Well, we've gone sufficiently off on a tangent. So let's go. You are going to help us create local administrator.
Yes, let's do that. Right. So here we are.
Carry on, sir.
So here's everything you need, right? So we've kind of gone through the whole cheat sheet, right? We've kind of researched everything. We've got the things we need. We've got the URI path. We know from this example, this is XML, right? So that's the data type. Here's an example of kind of what it looks like. Here's the example of the one that I'm using that I'll share with you also. Right. So from this point, you can go into the Intune portal finally, right? And this is kind of what it's going to look like, and I'll show you. If I can go over here, you can see my sleeping tabs. I love this. The new Edge puts the tabs to sleep.
Oh, that's cool.
Where's my thing? All right. So in the MIM portal, devices, Windows. Here's all my profiles. And here somewhere is this one, which should look pretty similar to this. So this, again, I just copy and paste right from the CSP definition in here. So this is just something I do. You don't have to do that. These are all optional, right? But I always put those in there.
Yep.
And when you create it, you'll just edit. Right, so there's where the screenshot came from. So name, description, OMA-URI path. Very important here. No extra spaces, no changing tense on the capitalization. It has to be exactly like what you see in the reference page. Right, so everything we saw making this entire path is all
for a reason.
Case sensitive.
Yes, thank you. I think a case. Yeah.
Yeah.
So case sensitive is the entire thing. All the things
teaching Windows people about case sensitivity is one of the best experiences I've had in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So this one, you notice, so I've got the OMA-URI here, right? And remember, this is always going to be the same, well, most of the time anyway, to make it easy for you. You just have to find that area path. Now, what I've done, when I use XML, I always create XML in like Notepad and import it in here. Just browse for it in. You can type it in.
VS Code. Everybody should use VS Code to create their XML.
Should use VS Code, yes.
Definitely. Yeah.
We'll edit that part out.
So this is policy, right? So you saw now, it looks pretty daunting. If I would have just started with this screenshot, we'd have all been like, no, this is not going to end well, right? But you can see how easy it is to kind of do this now. So this is the definition. Most policy, or a lot of policies, don't have XML. It's just a bit. Is it on? Is it off? It's just an integer 1, 0. Pretty easy to set up. This is an example I want to show you because it had XML to see this. If your XML isn't formed properly, the policy won't save. So it's going to check the syntax too. So when you go through there, when this saves properly, you know, okay, I've got good XML. I can deploy the policy out now. So if we go look on a device.
So Jeff, just quickly while we're looking at that, I see you've done one policy per policy, or one setting per policy. Is that recommended or is that just personal preference? Does it matter which way we go about it?
I personal preference. I'm not sure if there is a recommendation. There may be. For me, I try to keep it as simple as possible in all my policies. I'd rather have a lot of granular policies that I can figure out where something went wrong. I got one place to go to. When I do that, if they're related, maybe I'll put a couple there together. But generally, I try to stick to as few as possible on these.
Yeah. Well, again, now you can do policy sets, right? So you can make individual ones and then group them together to do assignments.
Can you link the custom policies in there? I know there's certain
policy set. Yeah, I'm not sure because we don't support everything yet, right? We don't support types of apps, right? So that's actually a good question. We'll have to see at the end here if we have time. We'll go see create one, right? But anyway, so this is the policy, right? And if I go look on the device, let's go look. This is one of them I've pushed to. If I go look in administrators, it matches, right? And if going through, this is what's interesting here. So you see, here's the administrator, which we can't delete, right? Everybody knows. And then I've got my 2 users I put in. And then these 2 SIDs, I put these in the policy. I just went to an Azure AD join device and I grab these 2 SIDs and I add them to my policy. Right? These are going to be different for everybody. One of these is the Azure AD Global Administrators for your tenant. And one of these is the Azure AD Device Administrators for your tenant. So these are tenant-wide settings. These are tenant-wide SIDs. They're different for everybody. They're added by default when you join device to Azure AD.
And by different for everybody, you mean it's a different unique SID for each tenant, but every device in your tenant would have the same 2 SIDs once they're Azure AD join.
Yep. I've seen customers look at screenshots online and
they copy it verbatim.
Good. They're like, that's not going to work for us, right?
So I found something really fun about this today or this week. Those SIDs can be converted to the GUID that reflects the actual user object in Azure AD. So if you know the GUID of the admin account, you can actually reverse it and turn it into the SID, or vice versa. So if you don't know what the SID is, and you know what the GUID is, you can get that. It's actually really cool.
I'm sure Ben will release that in a blog post at some point in the
Yeah.
future.
Probably link it down there somewhere.
Look forward
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah. It's very, very cool stuff.
So Jeff, before you click away from that, so the Azure AD prefix on the help desk users, is that consistent across? Is that unique to your tenant? Is that so basically, is that an Azure AD account, and you put Azure AD / in front of it for it to work?
Yeah, you can put Azure AD in front of it just like that, and that'll pull it as we put it here. But let me show you too real quick. I have had questions where kind of terminology again, where we have global administrators, pretty straightforward. Azure AD device administrators. People are wondering, is that a special group you have to create somewhere? Is that something like that? If you go, my USB drive is reconnecting here. If you go into Azure, right, and devices, in device settings, this is, again, it's a tenant-wide setting, right? So if you go to local administrators, these are the users that are being added from that SID. So the users that you've added in as a device administrator in Azure, these are the ones that get added. So it's not a security group somewhere. It's not something else floating around. It's not a group you have to maintain as an Intune admin. These are just going to be what's dropped on those devices.
So that's interesting in that you could have. So I'm looking at it saying, why do you have to put individual users in there? But when it makes it to the device, it's making it down as a unique SID that points to a group of users in that special bucket. So it's not. Does that make sense? Because I was like, why wouldn't you just be able to put a security group into the thing? But that's kind of what you're creating. It's a custom special security group.
Yep, that's how it's handled there. Yeah,
I like that. Okay.
So
now, if I was going to do a hybrid join device, would I be able to just put the FQDN of the username in this the same way? Just a normal.
Yeah.
No, but if I'm trying to convert and not use group policy, Steve, I want to use.
Then you just use domain / username.
Okay.
You know, we don't talk about hybrid here, Adam.
No hybrid. It's all cloud.
I'm asking for a friend, Steve. Asking for a friend.
You got to go all in.
Exactly. Right. Well, or that, or say everything is hybrid.
Yeah. Right. So there's administrators, right? And then I keep the handy event log up here for Intune things. Remember we saw the SyncML return codes, right? 200, 202, right? These are all the ones that are coming that are all in that specification you can look at.
Whoa. How did you make a custom view for Intune events? Where is that?
So all I did, let's go, I'll show you. So I went into application services, Microsoft, Windows, hit my D key. So this is the event log where all the Intune stuff is, right? And you just create a custom view.
All right, cool.
And I just happen to name mine Intune stuff, and then what I did with Intune events is you can filter this again. And for the ones we're looking for 800s, right? So you can see all these. So it's just an easy way to do it. So here you can kind of see 814. This is our policy as it got applied. Right, so you can kind of see that. And then because I'm super lazy, I actually saved it right here, so I don't have to go looking for it later on. So this is an example of the policy actually being applied in the event log.
Just out of interest, Jeff, if that policy is sitting there in plain text, if we send down a local admin password via OMA-URI, does it get stored in plain text in the event log?
I would imagine not. I mean, we don't really send the passwords here. We're not managing passwords. We're just managing group memberships here with this one.
No, I was just more meaning because I believe there is a policy that allows you to set the local admin password. Does it? Well, do you know? If you don't know,
I don't know. Yeah. That's one thing about me. If I don't know, I'll just say I don't know. I won't make anything up.
Yeah.
So,
I know that custom policy that we've spoken about, Jeff, that to create a local user, it requires a username and a password, and that is stored in plain text in the
really
in the event log. Yeah. Well, I mean, because it's the same thing, right? It's just an XML with a username and a password.
Well, there's another reason not to use that.
100%. It's not a good idea.
Okay, but
just because users have access to the event log to be able to view everything for this. Awesome.
So that's pretty much it for this one. Where you can kind of see this is how we manage it in the end. Is there anything I've left out? Any questions you have?
No, the thing that came to mind was when you were creating the new policy, or looking at the one you had created. I was thinking, man, it'd be great if there's just an import from master list of policies. It's like, look, you don't have to expose them all into the UI, but at least you know what they all are. They're in the documentation. Just have them selectable from the list to shortcut that process. That sure would be fancy, wouldn't it?
I hear that a lot. I hear a lot of which policy settings are new, right? I've looked at this. This setting wasn't here last month. I swear this has got to be new. Let's highlight that, right? Or new policies or new things that are added. Sometimes things move around in the portal a little bit. It would be nice, and I think like in Azure AD, you'll get that purple flag that says this is new, this has been updated. And I know that's been on the team's roadmap for a while. But as far as I know right now, yeah, there's no way to tell which of those CSPs, Adam, is in the UI, or if it's in, and if it is, where is it in the, is it in a ADMX template, or is it in configuration profile, those things. So you really have to
I'm just saying, like, I don't want to have to type in the OMA-URI. I just want to have it in a master dropdown. It's like, look, you've got it in the doc.
Adam's being lazy.
Copy. You're telling me to copy from a text document and paste it over into this other.
Yes.
Like, you've already got the thing. Just
all the work's already been done for you, Adam. But even that isn't enough.
New hackathon project for you. There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but Adam, if you had it in the dropdown, people would just go in there willy-nilly and randomly set it, and you'd end up with the same problem we have with group policy today.
Yeah, but also if I could just get someone to, if I could get someone to just click my mouse for me, because like clicking my mouse is too much. If you've got all these in the drop
your whole job is preventing mouse clicks, man. That's
it is what I do.
All right, we have gone off the rails.
Okay. So that's pretty much it for the cheat sheet. You guys want to try one? Try to create one from scratch and see what happens?
Yeah, I've got 2 virtual machines spun up. They look lovely. I also have a barking dog outside somewhere. So I'm ready.
All right. Let me stop sharing my screen here.
Are your virtual machines connected to our tenant and stuff?
They are connected, and they are encrypted, and everything is looking amazing. Let me share my screen.
You're looking amazing.
Oh.
Wow.
I wasn't just resting on my laurels, as they say. Okay, so what are we doing?
So let's look at so there's 2 kind of interesting policies we talk about. Maybe so there's one called MDM wins over GP. So this is what's going to control policy conflicts. So if a group policy is trying to set something, then if there's an MDM policy, that will override that. So this is going to make MDM win. The caveat there is it's only ever going to win if the setting is in a policy CSP.
Right.
So you see a lot of customers deploy this policy, and they're wondering why is group policy still winning for things like BitLocker and Wi-Fi and these other things that are not part of the policy CSP, and that's why.
Gotcha.
Oh, neat. So is that not just default? Like if I've got a co-managed device, does that not just work?
By default, a group policy is going to win. So what this policy does is say if there's a conflict, MDM policy is going to win over group policy. So you see this a lot with co-managed devices. We'll move over to pilot Intune. We'll do things like that. We'll try to set the policies. We'll make sure that we're using this policy for those.
Yep.
Right, and this is in, let me find it here. It's in the policy CSP. And let me find the link for you guys here.
I'm going to open up the docs as well. Someone want to paste the link in the chat?
Yep, right now. So with this one, we're going to build out the OMA-URI path from that link. Did you get that in?
Yep.
All right, sweet.
You'll need to zoom that in a little bit. Yeah, a little bit more.
Not everyone's viewing this on a 800-inch widescreen like this.
Not better.
Yes, that's fantastic.
Right. All right. So, okay, I've never done this before.
Okay, so we're going to create the policy. So we're going to use this cheat sheet again, where we're just going to try to go build that path.
Okay.
And so we know, because this is in the policy CSP, and it's going to apply to device, that the beginning is going to start with .vendor or .vendor/MSFT/policy/config.
Sure.
Right. And
so okay, before we even do that, we've got to go and create the custom policy, right?
Not yet. This is the part where I'm like Wally and I use Notepad.
Oh, okay.
So for this one, just kind of build out the policy, the path.
Sure.
For me, this is kind of how I do it. And then once we get all the data we need, we can go create the policy.
Okay, great. Let me just, for some reason, close calculator that just opened up.
You need to calculate how long you've been on the call for.
I already know that. Let me just make sure that doesn't open anything sketchy. Could be anything. All right.
Do it live.
Doing it live. All right. Okay, so what are we starting with? So it's
I'll put it in the chat. The very beginning is going to be this, right? It's actually, there's a dot vendor. Oh, can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay.
So dot vendor MSFT policy
/ policy.
Yeah, got it.
/ config.
Config control policy conflict MDM wins over GP.
So if you go back to the website, do we see the full path there? Just out of interest, so people don't, so you can actually see where we pulled that path from.
Let's scroll up
a
little bit all the way to the top. Should be towards the top. There it is. And so control policy conflict. Yep. So that's the full path. That's how we came up with this. Right? And now we need to go back to the docs and figure out what kind of data is this policy expecting.
Right.
We see the device scope. That's fine. So here you see the two supported values. So this is an integer value, 0 or 1. It would be nice if they said integer or XML sometimes on here to tell you what the data type is, but it's usually pretty obvious. So in this case, it's going to be an integer. And the value we're trying to add is 1.
Which enforces it, basically. It lights it up.
Right, but this is going to allow MDM policies to trump group policies.
Okay.
So those are kind of the three things we need in our handy-dandy notepad file to go create the policy in the Intune portal.
Cool. All right, so we've got that information, so I can now go to the portal and start building out the policy?
Yes.
Cool. So because I know how to do this, we go into the devices, configuration profiles. I'm going to create, this naming convention is getting better and better.
Jeff, I just happened to notice in your policy list you didn't have any underscores or stars or.
You've maybe started thinking about using them though.
Yeah, how do you make sure yours is at the top? That's the important thing. Okay, so we're creating a custom profile because again, the stuff that we're doing doesn't exist in these ones. Cool. All right.
Funny because this particular setting seems like one of those ones that would just be like right at the top of your config or whatever. Like just click this one.
Only if you're doing hybrid, right?
Steve.
Yeah, and I'll see this a lot of customers use this for testing, just to test things out and see what it's like. Yeah. Just to make sure that your pilot goes well, we make sure MDM trumps group policies.
Jeff, I really like the idea of just grabbing the stuff from docs and putting it in the description. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
I would also, I would actually put the URL in here too.
Yeah,
the actual URL in the link.
To the doc. Sure, that makes sense.
That's a good idea too.
Okay, cool. So we'll go through here. Okay, so we're creating a new OMA-URI configuration setting, right?
So now we have to click add.
Yep.
And then go back to your handy notepad if we name this. Yep.
So this one?
Oh, all the way at the top. The entire path.
The entire path. Okay.
And that one, hold on. We have to give it a name. That's just a regular policy name field there.
Okay, so I'll just call it MDM wins over GP because it's the final
That's
thing.
what I called it too.
Yep, sweet. And then we want the full path in the URI.
Yeah, and we're sure that full path is case specific, right? No
Yes,
spaces.
Vendor. Well, we'll find out, won't we?
If you leave a space at the end of this, it'll fail. Right?
Yeah,
It's that specific. It has to exactly match what's there, or else it won't.
We don't have trim.
Yeah, where's white space trim? Because you know that
from the ends, no.
You know when you have to create the custom, when you create that custom XML, and if you don't form it properly, it errors out. It's using VS Code and IntelliSense to do that. So there is the ability to do trim white space on this. Anyway, all right. So we've got the description's obviously not important. We've got it in the the main part of the policy anyway. And then here, so
you should just write for the description. You should just say "see description."
I like to write optional description in there.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jeff, you said that the data type was an integer.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Weird that it's not Boolean.
Yeah. It is, and that's why I wish they would put the data type in there on that page.
It makes a lot of sense, but also, I mean, 0 and 1 it's not on, or that's Boolean to me. Anyway, that's fine. All right, so the value was 1, obviously.
Yeah.
And we just do that. Cool.
All right. Do we want to? Let's add another one while we're in here. And I know we said earlier to kind of do one at a time, right? And now,
yeah,
but I was just thinking this isn't going to be a great demo because you're not going to be able to see that.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Because as Steve keeps hammering home, we're not doing a hybrid, so we won't. No.
We will never do hybrid. All right,
and
let's do another
because
one.
We know how to do it. I'm gonna cheat and put the full path to the OMA-URI path you need to configure self-service password reset on the Windows GINA, right? The graphical identification and authorization page, the logon screen. Whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
So, and again, this OMA-URI path is that the same thing, integer with a value of 1.
Okay.
And this is something that you have to do after you've already configured everything in Azure AD to support this. Right. So you have to turn on the ability for users to reset their passwords. You have to have Azure AD Connect set up to write back passwords to on-prem, right? But this is really just kind of the icing on the cake here, where we're going to allow users, hey, you don't remember your password, we're going to give you an option on the login screen to change or to change your PIN or to do things like that.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I've got the name, description, OMA-URI, data type is integer, and the value is 1, same as the other one.
Yep.
Sweet. And we'll assign it to the group
Intune license.
Intune license
with a C.
Yep. Because that's how you spell it in Australia.
And we're from the future, so we know.
Fair enough.
Create. Sweet, that's done. So I'll pop over to my machines and I'll kick off sync.
Oh, hey, one of the things that our viewers have mentioned a few times is restarting the Intune management engine service as a faster way to kickstart the application of policies.
Mm-hmm. So
thanks, random internet strangers.
So this is how I do that. So you got to make sure that you open PowerShell as administrator. I can make this a little bit bigger, but probably not too much. And then we just go get service. That's it. Get service, Intune management extension, restart service. And you actually now, this is relatively new that we're actually getting verbose notifications stating that we're waiting for the service to start back up. This is great. And out of curiosity, let's kick off a sync the other way and see which one wins.
Yeah, I didn't think that restarting the IME service would help unless you're
brutal.
It's after PowerShell, right?
Yeah, it's literally like turning your computer off and on. It just forces that sync to kick off a little bit faster.
Yeah, when the process starts, it goes and grabs the latest policies and processes them.
Because it's literally a cold boot, because it's never expected that the service will ever turn off unless the device has recently been turned back on. Info. Okay.
That sounds pretty good in the background.
Yeah, it's got a lot of staying power. I really apologize. Someone can write a PowerShell script to shut it down. So I guess I could go into the event viewer and see if this thing comes through.
Sure. Yep.
And is that going to be the 814 status message?
This one should be an 813, I believe.
Okay.
Right.
Hey, Ben, you might want to do the view zoom on your
yeah,
deal. This is probably going to be hard for folks to see.
Oh, they can zoom in their own screen.
You need to turn on enhanced session to be able to do the zoom.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Let me see. And I can't use
No, hello.
Correct.
Yeah. Because you're
So
going
you have to turn on enhanced view to zoom in, but you have to put it back in the basic view to see the changes to the Gina.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Oh, geez.
That's
Nice.
okay. That's why I've got two. So we can look at the event logs in this one and go to the other one. Okay, so view. I still don't have zoom.
Must be because it's via RDP.
Yeah, that's potentially. Anyway.
You can zoom inside devices, settings, display, and zoom it there.
Oh, sure. Display settings. No, I can't. You know what? Everyone just needs to deal with it. It's small.
Okay.
Just
I will forward all the comments about how small the screen is to you.
yeah,
when
send
they
it to
come
my Intune email that I check all the time. All right.
Ben at Intune.training.
This is the demo for
Enhance. All right. So look, I'm gonna make it the only thing on the screen, so you can.
I will
Focus
fix this in post as long as you stop moving the screen around.
Okay. Actually, I'm gonna make this even bigger. I can't because it's in enhanced mode now, and enhanced means I can't do anything. One
Just do
more.
full screen and then zoom.
Doesn't work like that.
Hey, look.
Look
We're
at
done.
that.
Look at that.
So,
See, it says I forgot my pin.
Oh, did
Was
it?
it?
Was it there? I wasn't
Successful
even paying
demo.
attention.
Yeah, that was
Sweet.
it. We're so not used to that. Jeez.
Excellent. I forgot my pin. So
Now, if you change
actually,
the sign-in options to password, it'll let you change your password, right? Those types of things. All right, so reset password. That's what we just enabled. That's what that policy did
Cool.
with that. It was to give that option right on the login screen.
think
So
we have SSPR enabled. Maybe.
no, I don't think so.
Self-service password reset.
That's correct. SSPR.
SSPR.
Oh my god, that dog.
There it is. If you have a FIDO key, it'll give you the option to do all kinds of things here. Whatever your authentication method is, but it's covered by that same CSP.
Okay.
But again, you'll have to have Azure AD set up for this to support kind of what we're going on here.
Yeah, sure. So there you go. We could not verify. I probably didn't do the thing on my phone.
So I will tell you, I just spun up my VM and it did not. It has the forgot my PIN already, but it doesn't have the reset password option. So what we got is the reset password. I think with that OMA.
That actually makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. Pins there by default, passwords.
I'm going to make this bigger so that we can get into the event viewer and just verify that stuff, because that's the sort of stuff that I always have trouble with. Like, I'm happy creating the custom policy and all that sort of stuff, but actually identifying the success or failure of it from the event viewer has always been a bit of a pain. Let's try this.
Why don't you just use Zoom instead of Res?
Because I want...
Don't listen to Steve. He's going to derail you, man. Just do your thing.
Remember that time, the first presentation I ever did in Singapore, and at the last minute, before I was about to go on stage, Steve turned around and said, "Why don't you do the demo on my laptop, Ben?" Can anyone guess how that went?
There is
I
nothing
was
ever
speaking
wrong.
at TechEd one year, and my demonstration machine, demo machine, said I need to restart now for updates. And I had like 6 minutes before I was supposed to start, and I didn't even think, like, I go ahead and restart. I'm like, what have I done?
Yeah.
I was like tap dance for like 2 minutes. Like, yeah, wait for the machine to come back up. That was fun.
Okay, so can you take me through exactly where I need to go to find the logs?
Yep. So expand your applications and
logs?
services.
Cool. Applications and services. This will take a little while, I think.
Mm-hmm. And then Microsoft. Then Windows. Just click on one of these at random.
Oh, yeah.
Hit your D key.
You need to hit Windows. That's it.
I got it.
Yeah,
I got
and
it.
scroll down till you see the longest name with a D. Device Management Enterprise Diagnostics Provider.
Got it. Let me just make this a little bigger.
Does anybody else just go based on like the shapes of the words, and you don't really know what the words say? You're just like, yeah, that's the one.
Oh, what, you just scroll around like this?
Yeah.
So many times.
Like you said, find the longest one with a D. That's exactly how my brain does.
Okay. Admin or operational? I think it's
Admin.
admin. Cool.
And there should be an 813 if you right click on that and filter current log.
Yep, there it is. Yeah.
Well, I'll just do this because event IDs I want. Is it just 800? Do I just type 813?
813.
Somewhere in there, one of those is going to be the SSPR setup.
I have it in mind.
It might be kind of hard to find. I've actually got it open on my VM if we want to.
Yeah, let's just have a look at yours. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's probably be more zoomed in.
Yeah.
Yes, more than likely.
Let me get rid of all the stuff on my desktop here. All right. Okay, sharing back my screen.
I'm gonna mute myself while this dog ends itself.
The other policies seem to have failed.
Oh, look at that!
Well,
someone's fancy with his Zoom.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Very fancy.
That's it right there, right? So allow Azure AD password reset. And so that's 813 to the desktop I'm on right there. That's when that policy was applied. So way to track it down in there, just like you just did, right? The issue is there's a lot of 813s, right, to go through if you have a lot of policies being applied.
Oh, that's the top one. It's literally the top one. It says current user device int is 1 enrollment type. Yeah. So it's the first one.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Did you get a 454, Ben?
Where?
In the same place you're at.
Like an event ID of 454?
Uh-huh.
Let me change my filter. 454. Yeah, I did. MMD device with AAD, CSP name. Server has finished provisioning. I did get an error.
Okay. So I think it's a good opportunity to maybe take a peek and see, because this is the other policy that you created and it failed.
Oh,
okay. Interesting. Shall I? Okay, I'll share my screen again.
At least maybe not.
Potentially.
Is this the one maybe this isn't the one we did. But whatever. It's one to look at.
Yeah. You guys use the same path I did. Oh, I can't see that.
Oh, that's a different one. Okay. That's not the one that's.
Yeah, this is where it gets a little cryptic if you read through these to try to figure out from the little bit of information you get in these event logs for those custom policies. And usually this is like how I discovered like there's an extra space. You have to look very, very carefully and copy it out of there and see what's going on.
So when we look in the portal, we don't see any fail. They're all succeeded.
Yeah, okay.
And they've succeeded because the policy's been applied, right? It was just applied successfully to give bad settings, right? That didn't apply.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that there are some OMA-URIs that just don't return. So the return element of the API isn't sending the data that anyone expects. So it just reports as an error in Intune. It's one of those things where it's such a big, complex space that unless you're working with it all the time, you aren't going to know everything. So just understand that most of the stuff works. Sometimes it's a little weird.
Yeah, nobody knows how everything works. Trust me.
Exactly.
I work this every day, and there's tons of things I don't know. I learn things every day. One other cool thing, kind of some cool trivia here. If you look in there, you'll see 404s, which means just what they mean on websites even. Cool. Where something you try to set a policy that doesn't exist, you'll get that, nice. Hey, I haven't found this setting. And there's one people get a lot.
Yeah.
If you kind of click around, we'll see if we can find one. Oh,
fake policy.
Oh, right there. See where it says fake policy in the details in general?
Yeah, right. Okay.
That's actually a setting we sent out for group policy analytics, right? And then we're kind of testing things. This is one of the tests, and I think that's going to probably come back out eventually. So just some trivia for you. If you're looking through there and you see those 404s, like wondering what's going on with this fake policy thing,
that's so
like
funny.
a lot of customers do, that's what that was. Right, so that's testing some of the policy applications there.
Note to self: don't name things fake policy. Microsoft already uses that.
All right,
nice.
I'm done sharing.
All right. Well, I've learned a whole heck of a lot of stuff here. This is every time I've gone into CSPs, I have said nope. And just moved on because it just always feels like, should I really be here? Should I really be doing this? Isn't there a way to do this in the GUI? And which I think is sounds like the right move anyway to begin with. Double check, make sure that it's not already somewhere. But I've definitely demonstrated several use cases for this, and there's a reason they exist, and I think that's great. And I think for me, I mean, you've kind of helped demystify it and make it a much more approachable option to, go plug in. So
great.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah,
you guys
fantastic.
Yep. Anything else?
Parting words of wisdom.
Things?
See, I'll be here all week.
Try the veal.
Try the veal.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, Jeff, I can't thank you enough for coming and sharing with us. Like we said in the beginning, we will include links to all of the things, including your cheat sheets. If you want to publish them to your blog, or if you want us to grab those and stick them somewhere, we certainly will do it. Regardless, it will be in the description of the video. And look for Jeff out on social media. He's an excellent resource, and check out his blog. Thanks again, Jeff.
All right.
Well, thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye.